I would like to open the Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting. Our first order of business is the call to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Coulter.
Present.
Hugheim.
Present.
Lewis.
Present.
Martin.
Present.
Thorson. There is a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the March 22nd, 2022 HRA agenda?
So moved.
Oh, that was Coulter?
Second.
Second. It was moved by Commissioner Coulter, second by Commissioner Martin, to approve the agenda. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Coulter.
Aye.
Hugheim.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Madam Chair, if I could, I believe, since we are all in person now, that we can actually do voice votes. We don't have to do roll call votes anymore. Not that,
All right.
these meetings run super long anyway, but
Oh, darn it, I just got used to that. All right, we will do that the next meeting. Now on to item number 3, approval of the minutes of March 8th, 2022. Are there any, excuse me, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the March 8th, 2022 HRA Board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hugheim with a second by Commissioner Thorson to approve the March 8th, 2022 HRA Board meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing no opposition, the minutes are approved. Next item of business, organizational business. I see we have no organizational business this evening. All right, we are moving on to new business, item 5.1, the 2022 CDBG Action Plan Summary and Document. May we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Erica Coleman, HRA Administrator. So before you today, I have the CDBG Community Development Block Grant, substantial amendment to the consolidated plan, as well as the 2022 CDBG Action Plan draft that is to be reviewed by the HRA Board here this evening to be forwarded on to City Council for a public hearing as well as their approval. And so each year, the City of Bloomington receives a Community Development Block Grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, and the city administers this grant through the HRA. The grant is used for a variety of activities each year, and the activities are selected by the HRA Board and City Council through an annual budget process for the program. We typically include activities that are titled single-family home rehabilitation, maintenance and chore services for seniors, lead-based paint abatement, affordable homeownership, and fair housing initiatives. This year, I'm actually proposing a substantial amendment to that. And so the 2020 through 2024 consolidated plan, which is our 5-year plan that was approved in 2019 by Hennepin County as a part of our consortium that we're part of, and the HUD, we are proposing amending the strategies and goals, as well as amending Section 108 loan guarantee uses. For strategies and goals, I am proposing that we create broader strategies to encompass more activities. And so the proposed strategies are now preserve and create multifamily rental opportunities, preserve and create single-family homeownership, preserve and create housing opportunities for homelessness populations, education, outreach, and services, neighborhood revitalization, economic development, and administration. A few of these strategies were actually used and approved in an amended consolidated plan that ended in 2019 using our CDBG coronavirus dollars. We, at the time, did not amend the next 5-year plan using our regular CDBG dollars, so that is why the substantial amendment is coming back before you right now. And then the second item is the Section 108 loan guarantee. The proposed is to amend to allow for activities that support affordable housing development, including real property acquisition, rehabilitation, or site improvements to property, as well as housing rehabilitation, economic development activities, public facilities, slum and blight remediation. This actually was approved by the City Council through a resolution back in 2019, and therefore, there was an amendment made to our consolidated plan at that time, and the Section 108 loan guarantee opportunity was included. What was not included specifically was economic development activities. And so I'm proposing amending a substantial amendment as defined by HUD, a substantial amendment because it's changing the outcomes and goals of the activities to include economic development activities to match what the City Council approved in the resolution. In addition to that, we are at the time frame for our 2022-2023 annual action plan. So I am proposing that as guided by HUD and Hennepin County, we are proposing that we do the substantial amendment to the consolidated plan at the same time of moving the annual action plan through on the proper time frame, but the annual action plan would include the substantial amendment items so that they would all match up. And so for our 2022-2023 annual action plan, the estimated grant amount is the same as 2021, $465,132. At this time, we do not expect that amount to increase, and we do not expect any additional funding. And then using the proposed strategies and goals in the substantial amendment, would like to change the categories to be a little bit more broader. Homeowner rehabilitation assistance, which also includes the lead-based paint activity. So no longer breaking out the lead-based paint activity from the rehabilitation assistance, which does include the loans, the home improvement loans. Develop homes for home ownership. This was previously titled WALT, West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust. They are still an eligible project underneath this activity, but just taking the activity a little bit higher and saying develop homes for home ownership, which allows for other opportunities. And then public service, we're doing senior services. This previously was titled Home SCS. And so taking it from being tied to the organization, even though they will still be eligible to get the funding and have the contracts as we have previously done. Just senior services, because there could be other senior services that we'd like to support and be possible to support. And then the general, this does not change, Fair Housing Implementation Council and Administration, which is the salary. So there are no changes there. And so on this next slide, I am just showing the breakdown. The actual funding received in 2021, the actual carryover from 2020, the program income that we estimated to receive for 2021, and then the estimated 2021 budget. So as you recall, the homeowner rehabilitation assistance line item, the home improvement program was paused for a time in 2021. So in looking at that and seeing the carryover estimate for 2021, that is why. And then adding to it the allocation from our grant of $465,132. And then the estimated program income that we would receive in 2022 brings us to that total estimate of $1,193,378 for this activity. And then just breaking that down, I have not changed the previous allocations. The develop homes for homeownership at $150,000. It was previously approved at $75,000 per project. And so that's where we're getting the $150,000 to be able to do 2 homes a year. Walt has not actually finished 2 homes this year. So we have a carryover of $75,000 from 2021, and then adding another $150,000. So it brings us to that $225,000 total. Senior services, that $20,000 has been the amount that we have set aside. They have spent that, and so there is no carryover. And then $5,000 for fair housing, and then the not to exceed 20% cap for administration, which is the $96,754. So that brings our total in the 2022 allocation estimate column, the yellow column, to the exact amount of our grant, and then our estimated budget for 2022 at $1,540,132. So the timeline that we are following is this did go out for public comment. So it is open. It was noticed in the Bloomington Richfield Sun, and it is on our webpage. So that public comment period opened on the 17th of March. We are here this evening for the HRA board to review and offer support of this draft. And then on the 28th, it'll go to the city council for a public hearing and for approval by the city council, and to Hennepin County Board for their public hearing. And then the written public comment period does end on the 30th of April. And then by May 17th, submitting to HUD, and we will wait to hear for approval by July. And I can stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Administrator Coleman? Hearing no questions, I would be looking for a motion to approve the 2022 CDBG Action Plan and 2024 CDBG Consolidated Plan Substantial Amendment forward to the City Council for their consideration.
So moved.
It had been moved by Commissioner Hukim. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Hukim with a second by Commissioner Coulter to approve the 2022 CDBG Action Plan and the 2020-2024 CDBG Consolidated Plan Substantial Amendment forward to the City Council for their consideration. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment or the motion passes 6-0.
5-0.
5-0. Thank you. I can't count. All right, moving on to discussion items. Item 6.1, redevelopment update. May we have the report, please?
Absolutely, thank you. So this evening, I am bringing to you 700 American Boulevard West to provide an update. I did add a little bit of an agenda screen to the PowerPoint, just so we can stay on track. So first off, I'll do a brief overview of 700 American parcel history, then review proposed development objectives for an RFP, review the evaluation criteria for an RFP, and then review the timeline. And then I have two questions that I'm really looking for feedback and input on, in addition to any other feedback or input that you have. Should any objectives be added or removed to the RFP? And should any evaluation criteria be added or removed? And so we have here 700 American Boulevard. As you can see, it's at the intersection of Lindale and American Boulevard. It's the property outlined in green. And that is REI with the parking lot. And then to the left is actually where Top Line Federal Credit Union is. But this is an older picture. It is our parcel that the city owns, and it is 1.85 acres. So this property was created, American Boulevard Corridor Project created 700 and 900 American Boulevard in 2005. In 2007, the city owns the property, and the Port Authority managed an RFP process. At the time, 900 American was sold directly to Top Line Federal Credit Union, and 700 was sold to a development company. In 2012, the city repurchased 700 American, as the developer was unable to meet the proposal and the time frame of the development. So then we get to 2016. The city had held it since then. And in November, the council approved issuance of an RFP. And so an RFP was issued. There were 30 plus developers and our brokers that were interested, but there was only one proposal that was received, and it was for a new health market concept. In 2017 to 2018, staff worked with the health market for their concept, and a redevelopment agreement was not executed. In 2019, staff re-engaged with the health market developer, but no agreement could be reached. Then we moved to 2019, and the project was moved to the HRA for redevelopment, but the city still owns the site. So in 2020, right before everything shut down, the HRA staff did engage a consultant to conduct developer roundtables. And some of the themes that were used and that emerged were using the highest and best use for the area, that this is a 50 to 100 year decision for an asset to the city, and that there are challenges identified to achieve a larger, more signature development. Out of those challenges, one of the things were the power lines that are running on the north edge of that property. And so I can just actually show you that. So this yellow line here are the power lines, that overhead power lines that run through. One is the property, 700 American we own. 2 is Top Line Federal Credit Union. And 3 is actually REI and their property that they own with that parking lot. So we move forward with special TIF legislation request, and it was approved. And the goals were to maximize development on the vacant parcels, to remove barriers by providing funding for burying of overhead power lines and transformers, to develop a vertically mixed use building or buildings using the city's affordable housing policy, and to provide public assistance for the shortest length of time. So those were the goals identified as to why we were seeking special TIF legislation. So with that approval, I would like to touch on briefly a timeline where today, March Q1, we're asking for HRA board input around how to release an RFP and some of the components of the RFP. Also be asking the city council for the same input as the city would be releasing the RFP. The HRA does not release the RFP. And then after that, would be looking to finalize the RFP, which would be staff incorporating any input or feedback, as well as legal review and the process for purchasing to launch that RFP, with an expected release in Q2, between May and June. And then proposal review and selection would be in Q3. And the reason it says July to August is would like to have that RFP open for 7 weeks to allow ample time for responses. And the proposal review and selection would include staff review and recommendation, HRA board review and support, and then on to city council for approval of recommendations. And so to get to some of the meat of the RFP, the development objectives, I'm proposing that we set a minimum purchase price. The minimum purchase price is to be set at $2 million. And this is based on the previous RFPs that were done in 2016, 2017, that was set at $2 million, which also includes a repayment to Public Works for the use of the loan fund, right-of-way loan acquisition fund that was used to help purchase this property. And so that is the reason for looking at that, but that's not changing from the previously approved RFP. And then the project. A multi-story, higher intensity development, non-retail, a development that activates both Lindale and American and does not turn its back on the corner, building placement near the corner, so the orientation of the building, high quality construction, exterior material and architecture, and sustainable development. Also would look for a developer to propose burying the overhead power lines and transformers, and encouragement to work with owners of adjacent property. The reason this is in there because we only own 700 American. We would like to see a larger development but it also would need to be feasible and it would need to be able to pencil out. And so encouragement to work with that. And then closing on the property within 12 months of proposal approval, because we do want to get the development going. And I'll come back to this slide in just a moment. And then evaluation criteria. So how would we evaluate, if those are the baseline, how would we evaluate it? So evaluate the project. So a quality of exterior design and materials and other environmental and or sustainability standards. The extent to which the proposed development incorporates and more efficiently uses the adjacent vacant parcel and excess parking at the REI site. So how are they using that? That would be a criteria to evaluate. Market and financial feasibility, and if it can be started and completed in a timely manner, understanding that burying the power lines could be up to 2 years. However, in discussions with Excel Energy, the development can start in advance of or be concurrent with the burying of the power lines and the transformers. And then what public benefits are to be provided by the development? In terms of evaluating the developer, is the developer experience and capacity, both financial and organizational capacity? And then objectives. If it is housing, so I want to come back to that because not necessarily saying we're requiring housing. If it's housing, the degree to which the proposal meets or exceeds the city's affordable housing goals, so it'd have to use the Opportunity Housing Ordinance. The purchase price of the city-owned parcel, because again, I'm proposing a minimum of $2 million as a price. A requirement of additional public investment. If they are needing that, how much do they need? And what does that look like? And then economic impact. The estimated taxable market value of the completed project, employment potential, et cetera. So that was a lot of information. And I'll jump back to my questions really quickly. Should any objectives be added or removed? And should any evaluation criteria be added or removed? And then I can stand for any discussion, comments, or feedback.
I will open it up to the commissioners. Are there any questions for Administrator Coleman?
Commissioner Thorson here. I guess
Commissioner
in
Thorson?
thinking about potential for housing, and I brought this up in past meetings, as we increase density, I would also like to ensure that we, particularly again in housing areas, we have open space or green space. And I was thinking about this recently. I tend to use the term green space, but I'm not sure. I'm talking public gathering areas, play areas for kids. So it doesn't have to be a ring of grass around it or a big lawn, but it's just areas that are public and gathering places and places for families to recreate and watch over their kids, and so forth. So that applies to housing. Now, as I've been thinking about it, could also apply to a business setting, that there could be some space as well for employees to eat. I just don't want to see us, when we use the term maximizing, the property, that we're using every square inch simply for its primary purpose. And with that,
I would just like to kind of piggyback on that. Yeah, what I wrote down was a sense of community, and that's what I'm seeing there, having something to make it more of a sense of community.
And to add to that, I think that's a good way of putting it. I think that should be a criteria for a lot of things we look at, is how, I like earlier what you have is how does it add to the community? And I think a lot of what we do, particularly as an HRA, and I know it's a really vague term, but adding to the what we do should add to the sense of community. And,
Absolutely. Are there any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. So say we got a project proposed that didn't need to bury those overhead power lines. Would we say no to, are we trying to get these things buried in no matter what, or would we take it if it worked?
I think that would be a consideration and a conversation. REI does own their parcel, which is different than previous locations, other locations that they have, but it is a very large parcel. And so without undergrounding the power lines, it is a barrier to other development, and it may not be sightly for whatever might go there, because really don't want to see just a single level of anything. So that may be unsightly. So it'd definitely be a conversation and a consideration to take into.
And then, yeah, I'll just briefly echo that, especially since this is one of the biggest gateways into our community. Being able to show people getting together would be great.
Absolutely. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Hukim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to piggyback and agree with the green space. I'm very much supportive of that and bringing, because it is a busy area. And I also just want to, and I really want housing, but I'm wondering if there's the option of mix, like some businesses underneath. Like I see that just with the development area that it is already, like maybe a coffee shop or something underneath, and then, or does the space to the lot not handle that? I guess that's kind of my question.
Thank you for your question. Actually, it is zoned B2, and it is guided regional commercial. And so it can do mixed use. We would need to look at possibly re-guiding it, but it can do mixed use, and that ultimately was the goal when we went in for special TIF legislation, was to try and get a mixed use project there, considering it is the gateway to the city coming there. So, yes.
Good comment. Are there any other comments for Administrator Coleman?
Just one more question.
Yes, Commissioner
Is there a
Thorson.
potential for any further dollars available to a developer for burying those power lines?
Thank you for the question. Yes, that is a part of the special TIF legislation, was to allow for the eligible use of TIF to go towards that cost, because it is quite a large cost that we would expect the developer to take on.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, do you have any more questions for us, Administrator Coleman? Anything else you need from us tonight?
Last question, I just would like to know, how does the timeline feel to you? I know it's not exact, but it's close to this year, and getting the proposal back and before you by Q3, hopefully.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Just one question. If the proposal review and selection looked like that's Q3, is the idea then that shovels are going in the ground at the next construction season? So that would be, what year is it now? Spring of 2023?
I would expect shovels go in the ground by fall. Just to
okay.
make sure all the funding is in place, especially if there's housing and there's an affordability component, by fall of 2023.
Fall of 20, okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for us or questions for Administrator Coleman? No, I think that's an exciting project.
Very exciting.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6.2, Commissioner questions and answers. This is your opportunity for comments or questions. Do any of the administrators have anything they would like to add this evening? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn the March 22nd, 2022 HRA Board meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Martin with a second by Commissioner Hukim to adjourn the March 22nd, 2022 HRA Board meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. We are adjourned.